If your mornings feel like a daily battle and you're already exhausted before the day even begins, stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why it keeps happening and, more importantly, how to fix it without becoming someone you don't want to be. Every morning, it starts the same way. You wake up already carrying a quiet pressure in your chest. There's a clock ticking somewhere in the background of your mind even before your feet hit the floor. You move into action, trying to get your child moving, trying to get the day started. You repeat yourself once, then again, then louder. You remind them of things they already know. You negotiate over things that shouldn't even be negotiable. And when none of it works, when the time keeps slipping and nothing seems to stick, your voice rises. Not because you want it to, but because it feels like the only thing left that might. And by the time it's 8 a.m., before you've even stepped outside, you feel drained. Not just tired, but mentally spent, like you've already lived a full day before the real one has even begun. It's easy to believe that mornings are just hard, that kids are naturally resistant, that this is simply what parenting looks like during this phase of life. But that explanation, as common as it is, misses something deeper. Because the exhaustion you feel isn't coming from the fact that mornings exist, and it isn't coming from your child being difficult. It's coming from the fact that you are manually managing something that was never meant to be managed that way. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people never stop to consider. If your morning routine depends on your voice to function, it will eventually require yelling. Not because you're an angry person, not because your child is broken or uncooperative, but because when a system relies on constant verbal input to keep moving, there's nowhere else for it to go when that input stops working. The only lever left is volume. So the real question isn't how to stay calm when everything feels chaotic. The real question is why the chaos exists in the first place. Most parents believe they're dealing with a cooperation problem. It feels like your child just won't listen, like they're choosing not to follow through. But what's actually happening looks very different when you zoom out. Your child is waking up and stepping into an environment filled with decisions. Small ones, big ones, constant ones. What to wear, when to start getting dressed, whether to eat now or later, whether you're serious this time or if there's still room to delay. What happens if they don't move yet? What comes next after this step? To an adult, these might feel like simple, even invisible choices, but to a child, especially early in the morning, they stack up quickly. And by the time it's barely 7 a.m., they're already overwhelmed by a level of decision-making they don't yet have the capacity to manage. That's not defiance, that's overload. There's a principle from behavioral science that explains this clearly, and it's something most parenting advice completely overlooks. When people are confused about what to do, they resist. Not because they're lazy, not because they're stubborn, but because the path forward isn't clear enough to follow without friction. And children, by default, have less ability to cut through that confusion. The part of their brain responsible for planning, organizing, and regulating behavior is still developing. Add to that the grogginess that comes right after waking up, when their brain is literally operating at reduced capacity, and you have a situation where you're asking them to self-direct in an environment that gives them no clear direction. That's not a behavior problem, that's a design problem. Every time your voice gets louder in the morning, it's not just a reaction, it's a signal. It's your environment telling you that something in the system is missing. Something isn't carrying its weight, so you're stepping in to carry it instead. And that changes how you approach everything. Before going further, it's important to address something that might feel uncomfortable at first. The idea of being lazy in this context doesn't mean careless or uninvolved. It doesn't mean stepping back in a way that leaves everything to fall apart. It means becoming energy efficient in how you lead your home. Think about the most effective leaders in any high-functioning environment. They don't personally manage every small action. They build systems that allow those actions to happen without constant intervention. That's not weakness, that's precision. Weak systems require constant effort to keep them running. Strong systems run with minimal input. Right now, if your mornings require you to constantly push, remind, and enforce, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong as a parent. It means you're working inside a system that hasn't been designed to support you. The shift is subtle, but it's powerful. You move from being the manager of the morning to the designer of it. Because once you start seeing mornings as something that can be designed, not just endured, your role changes. You're no longer reacting in real time. You're shaping the environment ahead of time so there's less to react to at all. And that's where everything begins to shift. You don't fix mornings in the morning. That idea alone changes the entire approach, because every chaotic morning didn't start when the alarm went off. It started the night before. It started with a bedtime that didn't allow enough rest. It continued with clothes that weren't chosen, bags that weren't packed, decisions that were left open. It carried into a morning where the sequence of events existed only in your mind, invisible to the person expected to follow it. Design means removing that invisibility. It means making the next step obvious before the moment arrives. Clothes are chosen the night before, not discussed in the morning, not debated, already decided. The school bag is packed and placed where it always goes. Shoes have a fixed location. Breakfast isn't a question, it's already determined. When your child wakes up and steps into a space where everything has already been decided, something interesting happens. They don't stall at the beginning because there's no uncertainty about where to begin. And when the sequence of the morning is visible, not just spoken, it removes one of the biggest sources of friction. A simple visual reminder of what comes next eliminates the need to constantly ask or be told. People naturally follow the easiest path available to them. If the right path is clear and simple, it becomes the one they take. But even a well-designed environment needs something more to truly function without constant input. It needs momentum built into it. That's where defaults come in. A default is what happens when no one steps in. In most homes, the default is stillness. Nothing moves unless the parent pushes it forward, and the moment that pushing stops, everything pauses. In a different kind of system, the default becomes motion. The environment itself pulls things forward. That might look like consistent timing cues that signal when something begins. It might look like a routine that unfolds in the same order every day, without needing to be announced. It might be something as simple as a consistent transition that signals it's time to move to the next step. When something external carries that signal, it removes the emotional weight from you. It's no longer you asking, reminding, or insisting. It's the system doing what it was designed to do. And systems don't get frustrated. They don't lose patience. They don't escalate. They simply continue. But even with design and defaults in place, there's one piece that determines whether the system holds or collapses, and that piece is harder than anything else. Because it's not about what you build, it's about what you do when it doesn't work perfectly. There will be moments when your child doesn't follow through. When the system is there, the cues are there, and still something doesn't happen. And in that moment, you feel the urgency rise again. The clock, the pressure, the fear of being late. And the instinct is to step back in, to take control, to make sure it gets done. But every time you do that, even with good intentions, you teach the system something. You teach it that it doesn't need to hold because you will eventually take over. Detaching doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying urgency for both of you. It means allowing the system to have weight, real tangible weight that your child can feel and learn from. If something doesn't happen, there's a natural outcome. Not a punishment, not an emotional reaction, just a result that exists because of the system itself. And those moments, as uncomfortable as they can feel, teach faster and more effectively than any explanation ever could. Because the lesson isn't coming from you, it's coming from reality. And over time, that reality becomes clearer, more predictable, and easier to follow. There will still be mornings that don't go perfectly. There will be moments where your old habits show up again, where your voice rises before you even realize it. That doesn't erase the progress. It doesn't mean the system isn't working. It simply means you're still in the process of replacing something that has been repeated many times before. The difference is what you do afterwards. Instead of focusing on how the moment felt, you look at what the system allowed. You notice where it relied on you when it shouldn't have. You see where something was missing, unclear, or inconsistent, and then you adjust. Not someday, not when things calm down, but that same day while it's still fresh. Because the next morning hasn't happened yet, and that means it can still be shaped. Over time, something shifts, not just in how your mornings feel, but in what your child experiences every day. They begin to live inside an environment where expectations are clear, where structure exists without pressure,
where movement happens without constant reminders, and without being told directly, they start to absorb something deeper. They learn that clarity reduces stress, that structure creates freedom, that things don't have to be loud to be effective. They learn that when something doesn't work, the answer isn't to react harder, it's to build something better. And that lesson doesn't stay in the morning, it follows them into everything else. Because you're not just changing how your day begins, you're shaping how they understand problems, pressure, and responsibility itself. You're showing them that chaos isn't something you fight, it's something you redesign. And that starts in a quiet moment, long before the morning begins, with small decisions made ahead of time. You are not a parent who yells too much. You are a parent who has been carrying a system that asks too much of you. But systems can change. And when they do, morning